And I can delete that out. Okay. Hi everyone, this is Cami, aka Crafty Queen. Talks about mental health and recovery. I'm going to be doing an interview with this lady here. Her name's Norma. And we're just going to be talking about her experience as a parent of children who struggle, or people she may know that have struggled with drug addiction and mental health issues. If this is your first time to my channel, this is my reason for doing this is to help minimize the stigma attached to drug addiction, drug addicts, and mental health issues, to show that recovery is possible. It does take some work, it takes a support system, and it takes a willingness to do what you have to do to change your life. So with that being said, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit before we get into the questions.
So my name is Norma, and I have like 30 years of experience in the medical field. So some of this will be helpful not only to her, but it also will help me in regards to some of the questions and information that she provides today, because it is a challenge even when I'm out in the workplace. So I think this is a really good meeting to have, and I hope that she learns from me and I learn a little something from her as well. And hopefully it helps folks that are looking at it, because the stigma I see a lot of the times is when we say drug addicts, it really does push those people that are really trying to stay in good terms of rehabilitation of their lives, that they get labeled as that. So drug addiction is a big thing that I think is going to be a really good topic that she's covering today.
Good, thank you. Okay, well, we'll just start. Tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up.
So in our culture, we're migrant workers from Texas. We start working probably around the age of 8. So I have been in the work field since I was probably a young child. We didn't see too much issues with addiction of any alcohol or drugs growing up as a young child farm worker that moved here to the state of Washington until after I was married at age 15. I had my first spouse was an addict. Addiction was initially first basically marijuana, and then it went into cocaine. And then it sounded like, I didn't really understand this world of addiction and the drugs. It was called crack, or I guess it's methamphetamines or something. Anyways, I was in a marriage for about 16 years. And during that time, having some children there, my children had been exposed to that life and I'm talking about physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological. It's a very controlling environment. The children see what the parents are dealing with in the sense of being afraid of getting abused. The terms or the terminology of, verbal abuse, being very controlled environment where you cannot go anywhere, you don't have friends, you don't talk to anybody. Your children learn that life, and they think that that's the norm, because of course you have young children that are absorbing and learning this. And they think that this is the way it's supposed to be, but we know that it's not. And that's where you see a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder that you see in a woman that's been abused, and then the children carrying that abuse along with them, because they were abused themselves from the father, in the sense of, you do this, you steal, you do drugs with me. If you don't, I'll beat the crap out of you. So I had a couple children, sons that have passed away, and that was part of it.
Yes. Did you have both your parents growing up?
Yes. For me, yes. Yes, I did. And I think they did the best they could. But in our culture, we were married very young. Mm-hmm. Every one of us were married. Of us girls were married by the age of 15. I think the youngest was 14. But they didn't really, in our culture, they didn't really talk about, like, you don't talk about grieving. You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about anything else. I mean, I have to say that you're taught that you're going to be married very young. You need to know how to cook, clean. Back in those days, not that people sew, because people have machines to do that now, but you had to have the basic lifestyle skills that prepared you to get out of the house at an early age and get married. Mm-hmm. Now, we didn't understand what marriage was except for what we saw from our parents. And my father and mother were abusive to each other, because my father had women on the side, and my mother was married at age 16, came here from Texas with 7 children. Dad, was an engineer, but he had his sidekicks. He liked to go to the tavern and party and have his fun. And that's what my mother would tell us. So when he did come home, they would be fighting. So when I was married, I thought that was the norm. I thought it was normal to get, fighting and arguing and that kind of thing. Cause my ex-husband was the same way. He was very abusive and very controlling, and he had women on the side as well. So, you grow up thinking that that's the way it is, even though it's not, that shouldn't be. I mean, religion and so forth, even though I was a religious person, it was not applied during that time when I was married there, because you have a Catholic family, and I was a Baptist from First Baptist Church here in Pasco. And all my children, I tried to bring them up in that type of a lifestyle, Christianity, but it was a very different lifestyle. So it was hard how can you be able to go to church when you can't even get out of your house because the doors are locked, the windows are closed because of the paranoia, because of the addiction that the person is having.
Right.
So it was, your kids grow up seeing that.
Yeah, it's hard. But when it's something you've learned and lived with, it just repeats that pattern.
Right.
But I feel like, if I may say, that you have broken that pattern, and it shows, and you're a very strong woman and a good influence. So I appreciate that. I also was raised where we just didn't talk about female issues we didn't talk about any of that either. Like, my mom just handed me a book and said, "Here, read this." And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Oh, at least you got some opportunity. It was like,
oh my
shun the
gosh.
word. You don't even say anything here. It's like,
yeah, you just never know. So you've kind of touched on this, but how do you think that all of that lifestyle affected you, personally, in other ways besides there was the abuse and stuff?
I think it made me stronger because the main thing that I had to help with the kids from my growing up with children, so that from their exposure, is that I had to keep myself in a sane state where I didn't do drugs, I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't find that type of lifestyle was going to help me in any ways. I figured that I needed to be as sound-minded as I could to help escape that kind of life and get my kids out of that environment. So I had to be pretty strong. So it's almost like you black out the thoughts of what you've dealt with, pretend that never happened, and you got to keep going forward. And that's kind of probably what I've done for a long time. And so my daughter always tells me, "You're always covered up." Coping.
It's true.
Yeah.
Always. So here is another one. How have addiction and mental health affected or touched your life directly, personally?
I'm still emotional.
That's good, though.
Yeah.
It means you're alive.
Yes, it is. I think it's hard when people that have been through these times, as a parent, it's difficult, but we have to keep going forward, Religion's very important because God's got us through where we can't be, And I wouldn't be where I'm at in what I'm doing in the field that I work in without God being able to help me have that determination. I did it too to help my children, so that way we weren't struggling, and that was a big motivation. My children were actually my motivation.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And how many kids have you raised?
So I had, in the first marriage was 4 children, and then I did remarry, and I had another daughter later on in life, close to my 40s. So that was a challenge in itself, having a child later on in life. So that's a big gap between the older children versus the younger. But it was a very different lifestyle in the sense of my second child being able to be in a marriage where there wasn't any of that kind of drug addiction or anything. But I'm not going to say that it was a perfect marriage either. But the thing is that Brianna, my youngest one, she has had her challenges in regards to seeing things with her older siblings that has made her very strong too. She doesn't do anything with drugs or alcohol or any of that. And she's very big on church. And so she tries to stay focused that, I'm going to try to keep my life doing this and doing that. She's a bit advocate for youth when it comes to the church and trying to make sure others understand and learn, hey, you have to talk about things. So I'm seeing a big difference between my first children with post-traumatic stress and addictions and different things that they encountered in their years compared to her that didn't have any exposure like that. And because, it was a whole different lifestyle. And so you can see the difference between the two. But I tried, hoping that with the second time that wouldn't be the case. You could tell the difference once you are a
Mhm.
single parent. When I did bring my children here to Washington State from California, how much that there was a lot to have to deal with when you have that situation as a parent working with folks that have had exposures that have led them to start to use substance abuse as a way of a coping mechanism for themselves, even though we don't always understand it. But because I didn't understand it from the first time with the marriage,
Right.
but you just live that life. You just kind of, you don't have a choice. You just live that way. And, I think it's been a learning experience with the second marriage, with my second child from the second marriage. But it's a daily struggle, no matter what, because I think watching the older one talk to the younger one about experience and so forth, my younger one's just like, she tries to understand that, and she feels really bad about that. And she just doesn't want that to ever happen. She doesn't want to ever go through that, because she knows how much it affected my children. Because I lost one to suicide, and I lost another one in a car accident not a few years ago. So I've lost 2 out of the first 4 from my first marriage.
It's hard to go through.
Yeah.
So when at one time, excuse me, how did all this affect your upbringing? How did your upbringing affect your parenting style?
Well, the upbringing, like I said in the past, parents don't really talk about it. Like my dad never really talked to us about anything. Like I think my father was just the breadwinner. He'd go to work, come back when he did come around, because sometimes he wouldn't come back for weeks. So my mother, it was really dependent on my mother. My mother had a second grade education. She didn't know how to read or write. So she really counted on myself and my other sister. We were the 2 oldest of 7 at that time, to help her when it came to paperwork and things like that. So we didn't really know a lot of, like, we didn't know about, she really didn't take us to church much either. She didn't really take us to libraries. We learned more from going to school. That's where I learned to be really good at school and being a straight A student, doing really well in school. My goal was that I didn't want to be a farm worker. I hated that life of working as a farm worker. So I was really big in for myself. I wanted to get a good education, figure out something else, and I didn't know what, because our parents didn't really talk to us about anything. People would always say, "Hey, Norma, are you going to go to college? Are you going to go to school? What school are you going to go to? Because you do." And I'm like, I don't even know what college is, and I don't think my parents are going to send me anywhere. They were divorced by the age of 12, but it was. You really did. It was like a blank slate. So when you got married, it was just like, at least you knew how to cook and clean and do everything else, but not to say you knew how to be a wife, in the sense that I figured that's going to learn with experience,
Yeah.
But that was how it was back then,
So with your culture, what is divorce? How is it looked upon?
How's the what?
Getting divorced?
Oh,
with the religion and the
well, in the
culture.
Catholic religion, if you're married in the church, it's very shunned upon. In the Catholic religion, it's very shunned upon. When I was married the first time, it was just basically, I was married in Seattle through whatever you call that, the courts. You just go in and get married by justice of the peace, I guess it was. So it was a different situation. But the second marriage, I did get married through the church, and it's not very looked at. Once you're divorced, it's still considered that you're still married until that one of you die, right? If somebody dies, then that's okay to go ahead and remarry. In the sake of our situation with my second marriage, and even with my mother and my father, who were married up in Texas, they got married through justice of the peace. They didn't get married through a church. And they got divorced, and she remarried and he remarried shortly after, and they went on with their lives. But that's how I saw them. And when it was kind of the same thing. I just almost like replicating what you see from your parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
This second marriage, being divorced and everything, we get along pretty good, me and her dad, my daughter's dad. And out of respect, we are respectful, and we don't we're respectful, don't talk bad to each other,
right.
Because it's important. I want her to see that if this ever happens to her, that, what to do and how to handle those things. It's because, they're still learning from us, from us constantly. So we're just respectful of that, even though we're not married anymore. We still get along.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not good to. We don't need to be bickering and arguing, and I don't think that that's good for the kids, even if they're adults, because they're still learning, and that's part of them in their adulthood. They're still, how is things going to be? What if this does happen? Because we just never know.
Right, that's so true. When did you know your kids were battling addiction or mental health problems?
We can drop off your S10.
Okay.
Or are you going to ASC for literature?
I started noticing more problems with that. I started to notice my children having issues. Probably during the first part of the marriage, in the first marriage, I had a lot of secrecy when it came to taking them to school because all of them had problems with anxiety and depression, because you don't know if you're coming or going, because we always knew when Friday came and he started his pattern when he got off work that we were going to be locked up in the house again. The curtains, everything, the cords are being torn out, no phone, pull the phone out. This is the paranoia part when a person is on that type of drug. It's and then he would beat the heck out of me with questions over and over. Where were you at this time? And what did you do at that time? And over again and over and over, And I was a tough cookie. I would always try to get out of that, but I have scars to prove that I was a big fighter to get out of there. But I think what was the initial question part of it?
When did you know your kids were battling addiction or mental
because
health?
of seeing all of that, I started to see my children having more anxiety issues at school. So the counselors would call me from the school and say, hey, your children are having some difficulty with class homework, or they're crying, or they're having difficulty. So I literally, with one of my sons, I went to third grade the whole year with him. I had a desk next to him. And my son that committed suicide and my other son, those two were very close. They were about 2 or 3 years apart. I was in counseling with them always after school. The two older ones kind of were older a little bit, and I didn't get too many problems that they were doing bad. Actually, they were doing good in school, but it could be also a coping mechanism of how they just dealt with it. They would keep themselves, and I had them in sports, like I had them in karate, I had them in baseball, sports, and basketball for the two older ones. So the two younger ones, I could see they were having the hardest time. And so there was a lot of, you could see it coming out that way. And that's why I knew that I needed to get out of that situation somehow, get out of that divorce. And I had left multiple times, but he found me and would bring me back. And, would bring me back. Like that one's one of them. That's the one I grew up in third grade with. He would bring me back. He'd find out where I was at. I mean, I literally would get my kids in a car and I would run away. And I'm talking wherever I could find ran away, hiding. And he would find me. I don't know how he'd find me. And he would literally just take me and my kids, throw us in a car and take us right back. And would tell me that if you come back again, I'm going to kill your family. So I was always intimidated, and I was afraid he was going to do something because my dad was very sick. He had heart conditions. And then my mother, I was worried about my mom. So I was believed him, you're a battered woman, in an abusive relationship. So you just you just stick with it and you just stay in that relationship. And so finally, one of my sisters, she came up there and she says, Norma, you need to get the heck out of here, because he finally was sent to prison for dealing drugs. And that was my scapegoat. So that's when my life changed from that year, probably 1989, 1990. And that's what started my story here. And we became very popular here in the Tri-Cities, me and my sister being single parents, because I was a single parent. I started pursuing my divorce, but I had 4 children at the time. I went to college full time, had 2 jobs. My sister had 3 children, single mother. She had 3 jobs. And we were all going to school full time, and we graduated at the same time, even with me about a semester or 2 behind her. I caught up with her and had pretty much a 4.0 GPA.
Nice.
Won tons of scholarships to get my education. Came out with a couple of degrees doing that in the college years. But the thing was, I knew that if I was given the opportunity, I could get the heck out of there and do something better. But right when he came out, and that took me those 3 years, and then he came out of prison, and then the nightmare started again. So, I finally did pursue and get everything taken care of to finally bring my kids here. But you can't change what they had been exposed to. It's a fighting battle, and you have to support them and you have to work with them. There's a lot of arguing and fighting, breaking of things, and it's terrible, but it's kind of, they have to go through that, and counseling, which, I mean, sometimes I think it's good and bad. I mean, my son that was in counseling for about a year or two before he took his life, his counselor said, hey, he's good as gold, he's fine, he doesn't need any more counseling. And then he committed suicide the following couple days after that. So I was very upset with that, in the sense I felt like the system failed me there. And I went to college with that counselor, so I was really been more angry about it. But, you know, God only knows. He doesn't want people to commit suicide, because that's not the Lord. That's the devil that's doing that. But that's kind of how that was back then.
So one other question. Can you talk a little bit about the healing that has happened over the last few years
So
with your family?
I think it's a long process. I mean, we're about 29 years since I came back from California here. And it's been a long process. And I will say that some days are good, some days are not that great. You will never be 100% over everything that you've been through. I think that it makes you stronger, makes you try to work harder and keep going on through what you've been dealing with, to help your children. I always call them children. They're adults. I call them children.
They're always our kids.
Yeah, they will. But it's tough. You know, because I got 2 left from my first marriage, and they're the ones that have been through hell and back. And they are always dealing with different things. One is doing awesome, and you know her personally, but the other one is one I'm struggling with. And he's not ready to get clean. So you just worry about them, you know, that you're going to hear a call that they may be gone or something, you know. It's that one that was in the window. Yeah.
I can relate to that too. It is hard. Well, I think I've asked all my questions. I kind of asked them out of order, and I was able to add a little bit more because your story is so intriguing and it brought up new questions. So I really appreciate your time. I know that this will bring some encouragement to some people who watch this channel. And if it does get bigger, hey, that'll be great.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll keep doing interviews and it'll be great. So I really, really appreciate your time.
I think you're doing an awesome job, Cammie, by posting something like this. It helps other people that are probably dealing with the same kind of situation. We're going to have our good and our bad days. Sometimes we're strong as steel, and I can talk to people with no problem without a tear. Other days I'll cry like a crybaby. But it's a tough thing. It's a tough road that we're going to struggle through, and we'll get through it. You just got to keep going forward and stop looking at the past, because we can't change the past.
100%.
And that's what we hope that with recovery and those that are trying to get clean and that need support, us as parents need to hear and listen. Because I've gone to some of these meetings and I really find those are helpful for me to understand better how they're struggling, and so that I can be a better service to that. Not, you know, so I think that's a thing that would be helpful for parents. Go to the meetings, see what's happening, listen to what others are saying. It'll help you understand better what's been going on with your children and your people that you know of, because the more support they have, instead of just being labeled, oh, they're a drug addict, you know, it's just, I feel like it's demeaning. And I have so many people that I know and I treat that are recovering, and they're doing awesome. And they really appreciate, they're like, you know, in my profession, they're like, you at least listen. And I don't have you treating me terrible because you know my history. I said, I'm not here to judge. The Lord judges, not me. I'm here to serve and take care of what we are taking care of today.
Absolutely.
And so that's, if we would become more educated and understanding, I think we'll have more success.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll let you know when it gets posted.
Oh, no worries. Sorry
All
about my tearful events.
It's okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.